Hey, everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into Patrick Lencioni's The Advantage today. And we'll be exploring his argument that organizational health, not just, strategy or being smart, is the real key to success.
It's interesting, because he uses this really relatable analogy to explain this.
Oh.
Why so many leaders miss this whole health thing. It's like that classic I Love Lucy episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where she's looking for her earrings, right?
Yeah.
Frantically searching on her hands and knees in the living room. And Ricky's like, why aren't you looking in the bedroom where you lost them?
Right.
And she just says, well, the light's better out here.
Huh. I see where he's going with that.
Right.
It's like leaders are so focused on what's easy to see and measure.
Yeah.
The smart stuff, the strategy, whatever.
So stuff that's easy to quantify.
Yeah, exactly.
They miss that organizational health, which is maybe less obvious.
Right. It's hidden in plain sight. So let's shed some light on this organizational health thing.
Okay.
What does Lencioni actually mean by that?
So he defines it as a state of integrity.
Yeah.
Not in the ethical way we usually think of it.
Right.
But more in terms of wholeness, alignment,
I guess.
making sure all the pieces fit,
So management, operations, strategy, the culture, they all have to work together.
They all got to fit.
Gotcha.
That's where the magic happens, when it's all aligned.
He's basically saying that knowledge and expertise aren't enough.
Yeah.
You could have the smartest people in the room, but if they don't work well together,
Doesn't matter.
it's all for nothing.
Right. And that's where his 4 disciplines framework comes in.
Okay, let's break down those disciplines.
All right. So the first one focuses on building a cohesive leadership team.
Okay.
But this isn't just about, a group of execs working together. It's about them functioning as a real team,
Like a well-oiled machine, where everyone trusts each other implicitly and can have those tough conversations.
Yeah, they can engage in healthy conflict without fear.
That makes sense, but building that level of trust, that's tough.
It is.
Especially in a competitive work environment.
It can be, and that's where this idea of vulnerability-based trust comes in.
Okay, vulnerability-based trust.
So Lencioni's saying leaders need to be open and honest with each other.
Even about their weaknesses and mistakes.
Especially about that.
That seems counterintuitive.
It does, but he believes that this vulnerability, it builds genuine connection.
Okay, I could see that.
And creates a safe space for healthy disagreement.
Because if you're always trying to look perfect, you're not really connecting.
Exactly.
You're not going to feel comfortable sharing ideas.
And he actually shares some great stories about how vulnerability transformed teams.
Oh, really?
There's one about this CFO who was, a bit of a micromanager when it came to budgets.
Oh, I know the type.
Right. Always watching the bottom line. But then he opened up about his childhood.
Oh, wow.
Growing up in poverty. And it changed things.
His colleagues saw him in a new light.
Totally. They got where he was coming from.
Yeah, that vulnerability can create empathy.
Huge empathy. And then the trust just builds from there.
Powerful stuff. What other stories does he tell?
There's another one about 2 execs constantly clashing.
Oh, I've seen that dynamic too.
Their personalities just didn't mesh.
Right.
But then they did this Myers-Briggs thing.
The personality test.
Yeah, and it was a breakthrough.
They understood each other better.
They finally saw how their different types were influencing their interactions.
It's amazing how self-awareness can help team dynamics.
It's huge.
But Lencioni doesn't just stop at trust.
Nope.
He says cohesive teams also need accountability.
Accountability is key, and not just the easy kind, for results.
You mean it's not just about hitting your targets?
No, it's about how you conduct yourself in the process.
Okay, but how do you actually hold people accountable for their behavior? Without creating blame and judgment?
Well, he has this exercise. He calls it the team effectiveness exercise.
Oh, tell me about that.
It's all about giving each other honest feedback.
About their strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly, and it can be uncomfortable.
I bet.
But the idea is, by addressing those behavioral patterns that are holding you back, you actually build stronger relationships.
And improve performance.
It all goes hand in hand.
Like addressing those little cracks before they become big problems.
Exactly. You got to catch those things early.
Okay, so that's the first discipline, building that cohesive team.
Right, a team that can really work together effectively.
Now, what about the second discipline?
So the second one is all about clarity.
Clarity.
And Lencioni is very critical of those vague mission statements.
The ones that just gather dust on a shelf.
Exactly. They sound good, but don't mean much.
Right.
He says real clarity requires a more rigorous approach.
So how do we move beyond the platitudes and create a shared understanding.
He outlines 6 critical questions every leadership team needs to answer.
6 questions. All right, I'm ready.
And these questions get to the heart of the organization's purpose, values, all of that.
Okay, hit me with the first question.
All right, so the first one, and it's maybe the most fundamental, is why does our organization exist?
Why do we exist? That's a big one.
It is. It's about defining your reason for being, your purpose.
Your purpose beyond just making money, right?
Right. It's about how you contribute to a better world.
I think people really crave that sense of purpose these days.
They do. They want to feel like their work matters.
Exactly.
And Lencioni breaks this down into different categories to help.
Oh, like what?
Is it about serving a specific customer?
Okay.
Or are you passionate about a particular industry? Maybe it's about the greater good or creating wealth and opportunity.
So it's about being honest about what motivates you.
Exactly. And then that clarity of purpose guides everything else.
I see. It becomes the compass.
Yeah. And then the second question builds on that.
Okay, what's the second question?
How do we behave?
How do we behave? Okay, so this is where values come in.
Right. Defining those core values that represent your organization's personality.
And guide how people behave.
Exactly. But he stresses it should be a small set, like 2 or 3.
Not a laundry list.
Right. Just those truly non-negotiable principles.
The ones that people actually believe in.
And live by every day.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words. Always.
Okay. Purpose, values, what's next?
All right. The third question might seem obvious.
Let's hear it.
What business are we in?
What business are we in? Huh. It seems straightforward.
It does, but Lencioni says you got to articulate it clearly.
Without any jargon.
Yeah. No ambiguity.
Like what problem are we solving?
Exactly. What need are we fulfilling?
I guess that can change over time as the market changes.
It can, but that clear definition should always guide your decisions.
Okay, I'm seeing how these build on each other, creating a clearer picture.
That's the idea.
So we've got purpose, values, our business definition.
Right.
What's question number 4?
All right, number 4 is about strategy, how you'll succeed.
Strategy, okay.
And this is where he brings in strategic anchors.
Strategic anchors, what are those?
Think of them as the differentiating activities that define how you win.
So what makes you stand out from the competition?
Exactly. And he gives a great example, this fresh produce company.
Right.
One of their anchors was maintaining a premium, high-quality brand.
Makes sense for a produce company.
Right. And they were so committed to this, they wouldn't sell lower-quality produce, even if it meant losing money.
Wow, that's dedication.
It is. It shows how strong their commitment was.
I bet it earned them a lot of customer loyalty.
Definitely. It's about staying true to what makes you unique.
Even when it's tough.
Even when it's not the easy path, yeah.
So how do we figure out our own strategic anchors?
He recommends a reverse engineering approach.
Oh, interesting.
Like, list all the decisions, realities that define your current situation.
Okay. And then look for patterns and themes.
Like piecing together a puzzle.
Exactly. You start with the individual pieces.
Yeah.
And then you see the bigger picture emerging.
I like that.
And there's this example of a sporting goods store chain. They used this approach, and they identified things like creating a family-friendly environment.
Okay, that's smart for a sporting goods store.
Right. And also building local loyalty, creating a positive environment for employees.
So these anchors, they guide everything else.
Everything from marketing to hiring to store design.
I'm already thinking about my own team and how we could apply this.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
Forces you to consider what truly sets you apart.
All right, we're halfway through the questions.
We are.
What's number 5?
Number 5 tackles goals.
Goals, okay.
So the question is, what are our goals?
Makes sense.
But he introduces this concept of a thematic goal.
A thematic goal. Okay, break that down for me.
It's like a single overarching goal that unites the leadership team for a specific period of time.
Exactly, usually like 3 to 12 months.
So it keeps everyone aligned and motivated.
Like a rallying cry.
Okay, and what are the characteristics of a good thematic goal?
He emphasizes it should be singular, qualitative, temporary, and shared.
Gotcha. Can you give an example?
Sure. So let's say there's a freight and logistics company facing capacity issues.
Okay.
Their thematic goal could be solve the capacity problem.
Straightforward and to the point.
Right. It becomes their top priority for that time period.
So how do you make sure everyone knows what they need to do to achieve that goal?
That's where defining objectives come in.
Defining objectives, okay.
He advises breaking that thematic goal down into 4 to 6 specific objectives.
You mean like measurable, actionable steps.
Exactly. Things like improve dock efficiency, reduce shipment errors.
And these all tie back to that bigger goal.
They do. It's about breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Right. So everyone's working on something concrete.
Yeah, but there's one more step.
Okay, what's that?
Identifying standard operating objectives.
Standard operating objectives.
These are the ongoing day-to-day tasks.
The things that keep the organization running.
Exactly, so you don't neglect the important stuff.
While still pursuing that thematic goal.
Right. It's about balance.
Okay, so we've got the big goal, the specific objectives, and the ongoing tasks.
Now we come to the sixth and final question.
Hit me with it.
Who must do what?
Assigning roles and responsibilities.
Exactly, for both the thematic goal and those standard operating objectives.
Everyone needs to know what's expected of them.
Right, and how their work contributes to the team's success.
Those 6 questions, they really paint a clear picture.
They do. It's about creating that shared understanding.
It's like a roadmap for success.
He actually suggests capturing all of this in a playbook.
A playbook. Interesting.
Yeah, a simple document summarizing the answers to those 6 questions.
So you don't lose that hard-won clarity.
Exactly. It becomes a reference guide for the team.
Okay, so we've got a cohesive leadership team. They've achieved clarity.
Right. They know what they're doing and why.
What's next in the framework?
That's where discipline 3 comes in. Overcommunicate clarity.
Overcommunicate clarity. Interesting.
And this is where a lot of leaders struggle.
How so?
They share information once and assume it's enough.
Oh, I see.
But Lencioni's saying true communication requires constant repetition.
You're like, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them.
Exactly. We need to hear things multiple times to internalize them.
Especially in today's world, with so much information flying around.
It's about cutting through the noise.
So don't be afraid to repeat yourself.
Not at all.
And what else does he say about communication?
He talks about the power of cascading communication.
Cascading communication, what's that?
It's having leaders consistently convey messages to their teams after meetings.
So everyone's hearing the same message from their direct supervisor.
Exactly. Reinforcing alignment throughout the organization.
It's like a chain reaction of clarity.
Yeah. The message flows down to every level.
He also mentioned an anecdote about a software company.
Oh, yeah. They found that this type of informal communication...
More so than the official channels.
Yeah, it created a stronger sense of alignment.
That makes sense. People trust their direct supervisors.
They do.
So communication shouldn't just be about formal announcements.
Right. It's about weaving it into the fabric of the organization.
Like in performance reviews, even casual conversation.
Exactly. Create a culture of clarity.
Okay, that's discipline 3. Over-communicate clarity.
And that brings us to the 4th and final discipline.
I'm all ears.
Reinforce clarity.
Reinforce clarity.
Yeah.
So it's not just about saying it, it's about living it.
Yeah, exactly. Making sure your systems and processes align with your values and goals.
This is where it gets really practical.
It does. We're talking about hiring, performance management, rewards, even firing.
Let's start with hiring.
Okay, so with hiring, Lencioni's big on prioritizing cultural fit.
Even over skills and experience.
Even over that, because hiring the wrong person can be so damaging.
It's like bringing a virus into the team.
Yeah, even if they're brilliant, if their values don't align.
It can create chaos.
He even shares this example of a company with a unique approach.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They intentionally made the interview room really cold.
Really? Wow.
To see how candidates reacted.
To test their humility.
Yeah. Those who complained or seemed uncomfortable.
They were seen as a bad fit.
Exactly. They didn't have the resilience the company valued.
Creative way to assess cultural fit.
It is. You got to think outside the box sometimes.
Okay, so we've hired the right people. How do we manage their performance?
So performance management, another big one.
This is where a lot of organizations go wrong.
Lencioni agrees he's not a fan of that traditional adversarial approach.
You know, the one that focuses on documentation and legal protection.
Yeah, more about covering your butt than actually helping people grow.
It's like going through the motions without any heart.
Exactly. He advocates for a more human-centered approach.
So the goal is to help employees understand their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, and to set clear goals, get regular feedback, and actually develop.
It's about creating a culture of continuous learning.
Where feedback is seen as a gift, not a punishment.
I like that.
And of course, that feedback should tie back to the organization's values and goals.
So it reinforces that clarity and alignment.
Always.
Okay, we've covered hiring, performance management. What about rewards and recognition?
Lencioni's point here is that rewards should be tied to values and goals.
So it's not just about arbitrary bonuses or promotions.
No, it should be meaningful. recognizing contributions that align with the bigger picture.
He did share that anecdote about the leadership team praising an employee.
Oh, yeah, they were praising her, but they never actually told her.
They were too caught up in their own meeting.
Yeah, they missed that opportunity to reinforce her behavior in real time.
Those moments of genuine recognition can be so powerful.
They can. They make people feel valued.
Okay, so hiring, performance management, rewards, and then there's the tough one, firing.
Firing, yeah, nobody likes that part.
But it's sometimes necessary.
It is, and Lencioni's point is that it should be driven by values.
So even if someone's talented, if they don't fit the culture...
You gotta let them go.
He shared a personal story about that, right?
He did. He made the mistake of promoting someone who wasn't a good fit.
Even though they were technically competent.
Yeah, and it hurt the team in the long run.
It's a good reminder that sometimes you have to make tough choices.
You do, for the sake of the overall health of the team.
And he also talks about the importance of handling those firings with respect.
Absolutely. Even in difficult situations, your values should guide you.
It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And, Lencioni also tackles a topic that most people dread.
Oh, what's that?
Meetings!
Meetings. Ugh. Everyone's least favorite thing.
But he argues that they can actually be a powerful tool.
Wait, are you saying meetings don't have to be soul-sucking?
He believes they can be productive, even enjoyable.
Okay, I'm listening.
He introduces this idea of meeting stew.
Meeting stew? What is that?
It's what happens when you try to cram too many types of discussions into one meeting.
Like trying to make a gourmet meal by throwing everything in a pot.
Right. It just becomes a mess.
No wonder meetings are so often unproductive.
Exactly. So he recommends structuring meetings more intentionally.
Okay, so how do we do that?
He suggests 4 distinct types of meetings.
4 types of meetings. All right, break it down for me.
The first one is the daily check-in.
Daily check-in. Okay.
These are brief, like 5 to 10 minutes.
That seems almost too good to be true.
I know, right? But they're not meant to be deep dives.
Just quick touch points.
Exactly, to keep the leadership team aligned.
So what should we actually talk about in these daily check-ins?
He suggests focusing on 3 things.
Okay.
First, each member shares a brief update on their most important tasks.
Okay.
Second, they identify any roadblocks they're facing.
Oh, blocks, got it.
And third, they ensure alignment around priorities for the day.
So everyone knows what's most urgent and important.
Exactly. It creates that rhythm of communication.
Without those long, drawn-out meetings.
Exactly. And these daily check-ins can be really good for building trust.
How so?
When you're regularly sharing updates and challenges,
Yeah.
It creates a sense of transparency and support.
Like we're all in this together?
Right. We're a team.
Like those daily huddles sports teams do.
Totally. Keeping everyone connected and focused.
He mentioned a story about a leadership team who were hesitant about daily check-ins.
Oh, yeah. They thought it was just another meeting.
They thought they were too busy.
But then they missed them when they stopped.
They felt disconnected.
Yeah, those regular touch points, they matter.
It's like anything, you don't realize how important something is until it's gone.
Very true.
Okay, so daily check-ins for alignment? What about those tactical meetings?
All right, so tactical meetings, these are where you get into the week-to-week operational stuff.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, you roll up your sleeves and get things done.
So how do you keep them from becoming those meandering, unproductive meetings?
Lencioni stresses the importance of a clear agenda.
Driven by those 6 crucial questions.
Exactly. The answers should inform what you talk about.
So you're connecting those high-level goals to the day-to-day work.
That's the idea, translating strategy into action.
And he also talked about having a facilitator, right?
Yes, to keep things on track, prevent those tangents.
Like a conductor leading an orchestra.
Exactly. Keep everyone in sync and moving in the right direction.
And tactical meetings can also be used to address roadblocks from the daily check-ins.
That's right. So you're not just identifying problems, they're solving them together.
Okay, so daily check-ins, tactical meetings. Now, what about those big picture strategy sessions?
Ah, yes, the strategic meetings. This is where you think deeply about the future.
This is where the magic happens, right?
It can be. You come up with those innovative ideas.
But they can also be a recipe for disaster.
True. They can easily go off the rails without structure.
It's easy to get lost in the weeds when you're dealing with those big, complex issues.
That's why Lencioni says you have to treat these meetings with reverence.
Reverence, okay.
They're not your average meeting. They're a dedicated space for strategic thinking.
So how do you create that space?
Schedule them well in advance, create a clear agenda, allocate enough time.
And hold them off-site, right?
Ideally, yeah, to minimize distractions.
It's about shifting your mindset.
Exactly. Creating a physical and mental space for strategic thinking.
I'm starting to see that each type of meeting has a different purpose and approach.
That's right. It's not about having more meetings. It's about having the right meetings.
Okay, we've covered daily check-ins, tactical meetings, strategic meetings.
Leaves us with the off-site review meetings.
The quarterly checkups, right?
Exactly. A deep dive into the health of the organization and the leadership team.
So it's about stepping back and assessing how you're doing.
Both individually and as a team, holding yourselves accountable.
Making sure you're living those 4 disciplines.
Exactly. Building a cohesive team. Creating clarity, communicating, reinforcing.
It's a time for reflection and course correction.
Precisely. You assess progress, identify areas for improvement.
And he recommends having an external facilitator for these meetings.
He does, to bring an objective perspective.
It's like having an organizational therapist.
In a way, yeah, helping you see those blind spots.
And having those tough conversations.
Which can be hard when you're all so close.
I'm realizing this framework isn't just about the organization's performance.
It's not.
It's also about the growth of the leaders themselves.
Absolutely. It requires vulnerability, acknowledging weaknesses.
It's a journey of personal and collective growth.
And those off-site review meetings provide a space for that.
For celebrating successes and identifying areas to improve.
And recommitting to that journey of organizational health.
You know, I'm starting to think that those times I felt frustrated at work.
Yeah.
Maybe they were symptoms of a larger organizational health issue.
That's an insightful observation. And, Lencioni makes a good point.
What's that?
Organizational health isn't just about business results.
It's about creating a fulfilling work experience.
Exactly, for everyone involved.
Making people feel valued and inspired.
That's where the magic happens, when people are engaged.
They're more productive, more creative, more likely to stay.
It's a virtuous cycle. Organizational health fuels individual satisfaction.
Which drives better performance and strengthens the culture.
And that's the real advantage. It can't be easily replicated.
It's about creating a workplace where people actually want to show up.
That's the goal.
We've covered a lot today, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
What do you think might be missing from Lencioni's framework?
That's a great question. While it's comprehensive, I think there are a few areas that could be explored further.
Like what?
Well, one that comes to mind is diversity and inclusion.
Okay, he does mention diversity.
He does, but I think it could be more deeply integrated.
You mean creating a truly healthy organization requires diverse perspectives?
Exactly, making sure everyone feels seen and heard.
It's about more than just having a cohesive team.
It is. It's about that team reflecting the diversity of the world.
And we also need to consider unconscious bias.
Absolutely. Even in a team with high trust, those biases can creep in.
We all have biases, whether we're aware of them or not.
And they can impact our decisions, even when we have good intentions.
That's a good point. What else do you think is missing?
I also wonder how the framework applies to different organizational contexts.
He mainly focuses on traditional hierarchies.
He does, but what about more decentralized structures?
Or agile teams.
Right, and with remote work becoming more common.
Yeah, how do you build cohesion and trust in those situations?
Those are important questions to consider.
Definitely. And what about technology's role?
Good point. Lencioni touches on it briefly.
But there's so much potential to leverage technology for communication and collaboration.
There is, but it's about finding the right balance.
Using technology effectively without losing those crucial human interactions.
Exactly. It's about supporting connection, not replacing it.
So Lencioni's framework is a good foundation, but we need to keep evolving it.
Yes, adapt it to different contexts, consider new challenges.
It's about taking those core principles and making them our own.
And that's a key takeaway. Organizational health is a journey.
Not a destination.
Right. It requires constant attention, adaptation.
And a willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. And as we're talking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking this framework isn't just for CEOs.
It's for anyone who works in a team.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play.
We can all take ownership of our contribution to the team's health.
And that brings us to a crucial question.
What's that?
What prevents people from taking that first step?
Towards building a healthier work environment.
What are the roadblocks that hold us back?
I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, let's dive into that in the second part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we talked about those roadblocks to building healthier organizations. Lack of awareness, fear of vulnerability, just plain inertia.
Yeah, those are some of the big ones.
So what can we do about it? What advice would you give to a leader who wants to start focusing on this?
Well, I'd say start with yourself.
Okay, yourself.
Building a healthy organization starts with healthy individuals.
Like you said before, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
You got to take care of yourself first.
So reflect on your own values, your leadership style, Your personal goals. Are you taking care of yourself?
Making time for rest, for renewal.
All of that. Are you surrounding yourself with supportive people?
People who challenge you too, in a good way.
Right. It's about being the change you want to see.
Starting with yourself.
And then, once you've done that inner work,
Yeah.
you can focus on building those healthier relationships with your team.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Create a space for open and honest communication.
Yeah.
Encourage vulnerability, feedback, celebrate successes together.
This is good. What else?
Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
That could be tough for leaders.
It can, but it's important.
It's about building that culture of trust and support.
Where everyone feels safe to be themselves and contribute their best.
And, you know, one of the most powerful things a leader can do
What's that?
is to model that behavior themselves.
Yeah, walk the walk. Don't just talk the talk.
If you want your team to be vulnerable yourself.
Exactly. If you want accountability, hold yourself accountable first.
Actions speak louder than words.
Always.
People will follow your lead if they see you living those values.
And remember, this is a journey, not a destination.
There will be ups and downs.
There will be, but the rewards are worth it.
So paint a picture for me. What does a healthy organization actually look like?
Well, you can feel it. There's this sense of trust and respect.
Mm-hmm.
People feel comfortable sharing ideas, challenging each other.
Without fear of being shut down?
Exactly. There's a willingness to collaborate.
Help each other succeed.
It's like a well-oiled machine, everyone working together smoothly.
I like that.
And there's clarity, everyone knows the goals.
And how their work fits in.
Exactly, it's like a shared map, everyone following it.
Even if they're taking different routes.
Right, and there's this focus on growth.
People are encouraged to learn and develop.
Constantly, there's a culture of continuous improvement.
And they feel supported in that.
Absolutely, people feel valued and appreciated.
That's so important.
And healthy organizations, they're resilient.
How so?
They can adapt to change, overcome challenges.
Because they have that strong foundation.
Of trust, communication, shared purpose.
They bend with the wind instead of breaking.
I love that analogy. They can weather any storm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the advantage, what's the one message you hope listeners take away?
I hope they realize that organizational health isn't just a nice to have.
It's essential.
It is, and it's achievable.
For any organization willing to do the work.
It's about prioritizing the human element.
Creating a workplace where people can thrive.
And it's not just about business results. It's about creating fulfilling work experiences.
It's about making work a source of joy and purpose.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up.
Yes, it is. But before we go, we want to leave listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
What's one small step you can take today to cultivate greater organizational health in your own team?
Maybe it's having an honest conversation with a colleague.
About a tough issue.
Or maybe it's suggesting a new meeting structure.
To improve communication.
Or even just taking a few minutes to check in with your team members.
Yeah, they're doing.
Exactly. Those small changes can make a big difference.
So take that first step today.
You might be surprised by the positive impact.
On your team and on yourself.
Until next time.
So we were talking about those roadblocks that can get in the way when you're trying to build a healthier organization.
Right. All those things that hold people back.
Not even realizing it's important or being afraid to show weakness.
Yeah, the fear of vulnerability, that's a big one.
And just getting stuck in those old habits.
The inertia, it's comfortable, but not always helpful.
So what can we do about it? What's your advice for someone who wants to get started with this?
I always tell people, start with yourself.
Yourself, okay.
You can't build a healthy organization if you're not taking care of yourself.
It's like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Exactly.
You need to fuel yourself first.
So take some time for reflection. What are your values?
Yeah.
Your leadership style, your goals? Are you living in alignment with those things?
Are you practicing what you preach, so to speak?
Exactly. And are you taking care of your own well-being?
Making time for rest, for things you enjoy.
All of that, it's essential.
And surrounding yourself with the right people.
Supportive people, but also people who challenge you.
Push you to grow.
Exactly. It's about being the change you want to see, starting with yourself.
And then once you've got that foundation,
then you can focus on building those healthy relationships with your team.
So how do we do that?
It starts with creating a space for open and honest communication.
Okay, open communication, that's key.
Encourage vulnerability, feedback, celebrate those wins together.
Make it a safe space to share and learn.
And don't be afraid to ask for help, even as a leader.
I think that's one of the hardest things for leaders to do.
It is, but it's so important.
It shows strength, not weakness.
Exactly. And it builds trust.
It's about creating that culture where everyone feels safe to be themselves.
And to contribute their best without fear of judgment.
And like you said before, it's important for leaders to model that behavior.
To walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
If you want vulnerability, be vulnerable.
If you want accountability, hold yourself accountable first.
Lead by example.
And remember, it's a journey, not a sprint.
It takes time and effort.
There will be challenges along the way.
But it's worth it in the end.
It is. The rewards are huge.
So I'm curious, for someone who's never experienced it,
yeah,
what does a truly healthy organization actually feel like?
Well, you can sense it right away. There's this feeling of trust.
Okay, trust.
Respect. People feel comfortable speaking up.
Sharing their ideas, even if they're different.
Exactly. And there's no fear of being punished for making a mistake.
Everyone's willing to help each other out.
It's a collaborative environment. Everyone's working towards a shared goal.
And everyone understands what that goal is.
Right. There's that clear sense of purpose and direction.
It's like everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. Everyone's rowing in the same direction.
And there's a focus on growth, right?
Absolutely. People are constantly learning and developing.
And they feel supported in that.
The organization invests in their growth, provides opportunities for advancement.
It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued.
Seen, heard, appreciated for their unique contributions.
I love that.
And, one of the best things about healthy organizations.
What's that?
They're incredibly resilient.
Okay. Resilient, how so?
They can adapt to change. They can handle those unexpected challenges.
Because they've got that strong foundation.
Of trust, communication, shared purpose.
Like a tree with deep roots.
It can bend with the wind. It doesn't break.
That's a great image.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the advantage.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation.
I've enjoyed it.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
That organizational health is not just a nice to have.
It's essential.
It's the key to sustainable success in today's world.
And it's achievable.
Absolutely. Any organization can do this.
It's a choice to prioritize the human element.
To create a workplace where people can truly thrive.
And it's not just about the bottom line.
It's not. It's about creating fulfilling, meaningful work experiences.
Making work a source of joy, not just a way to pay the bills.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode.
It is. But before we go,
yeah,
let's leave our listeners with a question.
I like it.
What's one small step you can take today?
To make your own work environment a little bit healthier.
Maybe it's having that difficult conversation you've been putting off.
Or setting aside time for a team-building activity.
Or simply expressing gratitude to a colleague.
Those small gestures can make a big difference.
They can. They ripple outwards, creating a more positive environment.
So take that first step today.
And see what happens.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the advantage.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep seeking that advantage.
Take care, everyone.